Hello and welcome to DDOCast episode 346, recorded live on August 9th. Thanks for your patience as we get rolling here. I'm your host, Patrick. With me this week, we have Cordovan.
Hey, thanks for having me. Sorry for causing a bunch of technical issues. Pro tip, if you don't turn your computer on for a few weeks, give yourself lots of time before you try to join a Google Plus Hangouts, because got Windows updates and hardware issues.
Much of anything else.
Yeah, what have you. I just cannot get my main computer working here, so instead I'm on a laptop. So that's what the deal with the degraded webcam image and just some of the weirdness you might be seeing here. So
it's okay though. We're a podcast, not technically a video cast, right?
That's true. Yep.
That's one of the
I'd be curious to see what the how many people listen as opposed to how many people watch. I assume it's good on both fronts, but
it would probably depend
more
on the show,
listen, right?
I'm sure when I do walkthroughs, I get a lot more video views. Although I'm sure several people will. Several of the audio people will kind of come back and watch the videos, but
for me, it depends whether or not I'm at work or in the car. Right? When I'm at work, I'll just run the video in like a corner of my screen or whatever, and that's great. But a lot of times I listen to my podcast while commuting in my car, and although I might be tempted to watch it while I'm driving, it's probably not a good idea. So I tend to listen when I'm on my commuter, listening kick.
It's generally a good way to go. Well, I kind of always keep in the back of my head that this is an audio podcast. It's not primarily a video thing, so I don't usually get too worried when our camera stuff doesn't work very right.
Right.
Anyways, this week's screenshot, Dobal shows off his necromancer ability in Searing Heights in the 183rd screenshot of the week. It's a nice little shot there.
It is. Can I just put out a quick shout out? We've had a bit of a slowdown in submissions on our screenshot of the week, so we'd love to see you submit some more stuff. That'd be great.
And a pro tip, if you want to get some maybe more likely chance of getting in the screenshot of the week, because I think you get some points if you get selected.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to increase your chances, try and highlight some of the newer stuff.
Well, actually, that's not necessarily true. I mean, look at this one here, right? And it's a necromancer in Searing Heights.
New for a while.
Yeah. Well, update 22 wasn't that long ago, but sure, yeah.
Yeah, it was. Comparatively.
We just did a patch on Monday, which I guess you'll get to. But here's what I would say for advice. Try to do the highest screen resolution you can. If you're on like very low settings, tends to not look that great. And try to the best of your ability, get rid of the UI from your screen. If you've got all your hotbars flying around and things like that, it tends to maybe get a little more cluttered. So hit Alt-Z and just remove as much of the UI as you can when you take your screenshot. Those are probably the two biggest things.
I know if you really want to get a really slick action shot, what you can do is take a video and then basically just like find that one point and turn it into a picture. I think I've heard some people like to do that as well.
Yep, that works too.
Anyways, we like to talk about Dungeons & Dragons online nearly every weekend. You can tell because we haven't even started the show practically, and we've already talked for, 5 minutes?
That's what happens when you get me on the show.
It happens when you put us both together. You can watch us through Google Plus Hangouts, YouTube, or from our website at DDOCast.com. DDOCast is hosted by Cyber Ears, the awesome podcast hosting network. Shows are usually available within a few days of recording. The next show will probably be next Sunday. It'll be August 17th. And you can stay updated by following us on social media pages or our website. And specifically on our website, we have this nice fancy calendar. I have no idea how many people use it, but it's really easy for me to use, and I'm so used to it, I'm going to keep doing it.
If you wanted to, you could put it on the DDO forums calendar. I don't know how many people really look on that stuff, but we've been trying to sort of make sure all the bonus days stuff gets on there and Lamania stuff gets on there when we can. So.
Daddy's working.
Yep. Hi, little Jerry.
Yep, he's here, saying hello. Yeah.
So curious.
Yeah.
Let's see. On the podcast this week, some brief news stuff. Not so much in the DDO realm, but other stuff more so.
Go upstairs.
Yep. Yep. Sorry about that. We do have a toddler getting ready for his nap. So.
Yay, nap time.
Yeah.
I could use nap time.
Yeah.
There's a. I'm trying to remember what the quote was, but there's basically this idea that you know you're an adult when you want to take a nap, but you no longer can.
Yeah, right.
Right. So kids don't want to take a nap, but they have to.
Right. If it gets too loud, I can mute my mic, but we'll see if I need to do that or not.
On the podcast this week, some brief game news and more other news going on. And then Jerry and I are going to display our prowess at building by talking about Swashbucklers, which is kind of the new Update 22 thing. So it should be fun. I think this should be a pretty good discussion on that, because I believe your Swashbuckler is a pure bard.
True, absolutely. I should preface this by saying I do not consider myself a build expert. I am no Siegfried Trent. I am no Patrick. So I tend to just sort of roll with it. But I'm liking my bard a lot, and he is a pure bard, and I can explain a little bit why I went pure, as opposed to maybe Splash and Monk or Rogue. And all that
and I think we'll have a really nice contrast, because you went pure bard, and mine is just enough bard to get Swashbucklers enhancements. So you'll get a lot of nice contrast between pure class and multi-class, and why you kind of want to, why you can consider doing that. But before we get there, let's talk briefly about game news. Pretty much the only official communication this week was about positive playing environment.
It's true.
Which was. I don't know if this is necessarily a change in stance or maybe a re-clarification.
To be honest, it's mostly a matter of just getting some more updated copy on our forums. It's really, it's not a huge change going on here. It's really just mostly an awareness thing. We want to make sure, people know what resources are out there and what's going on. Just sort of basically say, hey, if you're going to be a jerk in game, we're not going to let you. And but in terms of, say, some people in that forum thread maybe thought it was perhaps a bit more of a change that is actually going on. It's largely doing what we've already been doing, and we're just making people aware that, hey, we do mean this stuff. So,
Yeah, and it's all pretty reasonable stuff, and stuff that you would assume that they're doing anyways. But just kind of some highlights. Our mission is the mission of Dungeons & Dragons Online in-game moderation team to provide a safe, positive, fun, and friendly play environment for all our customers. We believe that a positive play environment breeds a strong and unified community, and that building a friendly and helpful community will help prevent the, quote, toxic player stigma that often becomes associated with online communities and games. So, yeah, I think pretty much everyone would support that. So. Let's see. Toxic player, plainly stated, is any player within a game whose verbal response to live game situation is constantly negative, abusive, inappropriate, and generally unwanted. Types of behavior often results in war of words that detracts from the gaming experience we want all of our customers to enjoy. And I think that's probably all I'm going to read about that part. There are a number of specific classifications of conduct violations that I want to discuss. So here's just kind of a few. One is verbal abuse, which is any chat behavior that is aggressively targeting a specific player or guild with ongoing name-calling, bullying, blaming, threatening language, or hate speech. And inappropriate language is any communication that contains excessive expletives, vulgarity, and all forms of hate speech. Keep in mind that you can turn your profanity filter off or on via your options menu. They will not be taking action against non-targeted language that's automatically blocked by the profanity filter. If you see language that should be blocked by the profanity filter but is not, please let us know. We're looking to adding it to the language and the filter system.
Yep, and that just means in general, if something is being caught by the filter and people have the option to filter it, we tend not to pursue it as much as if, say, someone is directly harassing someone else, sending them tells, or maybe harassing a party in your group chat or LFM or something like that, But we can. We can if we need to. But typically, we mostly go after people who are bothering others. Yeah.
Play nice.
We're not concerned if you use a 4-letter word in your guild chat and nobody cares, right? That's basically the point of that. Yeah.
Yeah. If you perhaps quote display the versatility of a certain 4-letter word,
yeah,
you might have some problems.
Well, it's mostly about others. If you're not harassing someone else, if you're not bullying someone else, if you're not targeting someone else repeatedly or another guild or something like that, and you're just really sort of maybe using this stuff in your party chat with your guildies, we're not going to police that really. As long as if your guild has an issue with it, let us know maybe. But we're not really that concerned about that. But we are very much concerned about making sure that people aren't using this unwanted to other people.
If your guild has a problem with it, there's this thing that you can do called removing a player from the guild.
Right.
Or you could leave the guild. Just saying.
Right.
I think the only thing that's kind of really interesting is that they can record text chat, if you didn't know that. So maybe you should be aware of that. And that's kind of what they're monitoring. They're not listening into voice conversations, or at least they're not actively recording any voice chat conversations.
I guess I would say as well, for those who are maybe, we live in a post-NSA world and all that sort of thing. We're not like, we don't have a team of people sitting in a dark room somewhere monitoring everyone's voice chat. Text chat and all that sort of thing. This is really more of a response thing. If we get a report, hey, player X just has been harassing my guild for a week now, we may well take a look at things if we need to. So
play nice, get along.
Yeah.
Let's see, that was kind of the only news this week.
Not entirely true, because we did have patch 3.
Wasn't that
we
the week
did have
before?
update 20. Nope, that was August 4th, so that would be this Monday.
Was that this Monday?
Yep.
I guess it's true. I had that in my last show notes. That's why I didn't remember it coming out. Yeah, we covered that kind of in the last note. The two big things out of that were the Saga XP is automatically applied.
Yep.
Face. And what was the other one?
Well, there was one in Blown to Bits that could crash your game client. We did fix that one.
Nice. No, there's another big kind of bug.
Stacked items go again into
That's
the
what it
shared
was.
bank and that sort of thing. Right.
Yeah, that works better now, which is very nice, very convenient.
Yep. The other one that's nice is the Bard War Chanters, Iced Edges, and Northwind are now working correctly after zoning. Some people were noticing that basically after you change instances or whatever, you'd lose your Iced Edges and Northwind, like it just wouldn't work. And so we did get that one fixed too. So that's good for all the bards out there. Bard War Chanters.
I'm just going to say, in case you and the devs weren't listening a few weeks ago, we were talking about it, but I'm telling you, Sagas, add an end reward add a reward to the Saga list that's a lower amount of XP, but it's a gem that you can save for later. That'd be awesome.
There are reasons why we don't do that, right? So
that's fair. Anyways, let's see. What are there any other news that you can maybe enlighten us to what might be coming soon?
Well, yeah, I mean, I guess I could say, it has been a little quiet on the forums this week. Part of that is that everyone's has their heads down in the dev pit. Basically, we're working to get update 23 onto Lamania. And so we've got some real big development sprints going on that are really actually, I believe, mostly wrapped up. One sprint this week and started another sprint. So what we're really trying to do is just get update 23 in a state that we can get it onto Lamania, and also it has to go through the QA approval process and all that sort of thing. But fingers crossed, if everything goes well, we should have update 23 on Lamania within the next couple of weeks. So I'd say maybe towards the latter half of 2 weeks rather than the earlier half of 2 weeks. But it depends how quickly things come together, right? So, but we should certainly have update 23 available for preview within a couple of weeks here.
So the curious want to know, one, since we're touching Orchard and stuff, are we going to break the Abbot again?
Well, hopefully not, but right. But I think that you can actually expect. I don't know if it'll be the first preview or the second, but one of the earliest previews is going to be both the Orchard of the Macabre landscape area and the new raid. Fingers crossed again, assuming it gets QA approval and can actually be playable and all the rest of the kinds of things that happen, right? But if it's ready to go, we want to get some early feedback on the new raid. So if we can, we're going to try to get that out.
My second question is, what does Epic Goggles look like?
I could tell you, because I actually ran the new raid in an internal development environment this week. Now it's still in a very early state. There was tons of incomplete artwork, and you couldn't actually complete the raid yet, and some of the scripting wasn't working, and there's a whole bunch of stuff. That's typical for this stage of the game, right? It's still in the early test environment. So we basically just got a bunch of the devs in just to kind of take a qualitative look as to, hey, how's this working? Is this going to work? And what's it looking like? And I can tell you it was pretty cool to take a look at it. It's going to be potentially very difficult, but would you expect anything less than from an Epic Abbot, really?
No.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. My only complaint about Abbott was always that the margin of failure was so high.
Right, we have tried to smooth some of that stuff out, right? This is, it's important to say, and we've said this really from back in the producer's letter, this is not a scaled-up version of the Abbott raid. This is a completely new raid that takes place in this space. The Abbott is in it, but, it's not really the same kind of thing at all.
Which is the same thing that happened with Giant Hold, and particularly from a storyline standpoint, works really well.
Mm-hmm.
And
I think what we're going for is more of a Giant Hold-like experience in terms of the heroic and the epic raids. They'll be very different from each other.
Yeah, and I've always liked the puzzles in Abbott. It's one of those things that if you fail and it's not too hard to fail. Let's put it that way. Particularly when you're talking about like Twitch things and lag and stuff like that.
Right.
It's not as fun of a gaming experience when it's okay, move in this exact sequence, hitch, oh, I'm dead, and we have to start over. That just doesn't. It's never played well.
I think the nice PR term would be the original Abbott raid was very ambitious.
It had some great things in it. Like I think the goggles puzzle is great, other than the fact that the margin of error is so high. If you misstep, you die. If it was something more along the lines of, you misstep and you run into spikes and you take some damage, but you can recover from it, that would be something completely different.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't really want to get too much into the tactics or spoil too much about the raid. We really want to get it so that when people first encounter it on Lamania, they go into it with an open mind and a clean slate, so to speak. But I think, if you have potentially struggled in the heroic version of the Abbott, like I have, I think this will be
a more enjoyable experience.
Yeah, much more enjoyable experience, much more doable experience. But that said, this is going to be a high-end raid here, and so you can expect it to be among the toughest raids in the entire game. So
challenge is fun.
Yeah.
If it's the right kind of challenge.
Right, exactly right.
I've always liked. It's fun when it's challenging. It's not fun when it's challenging to the point where it's really easy to quote waste time, in the sense that you spend a half an hour getting ready and then you have to kind of replay that 30 minutes to an hour over and over and over again until you succeed with any kind of high frequency.
Yep.
We like challenge, but we want to be able to succeed most of the time.
Yeah. I wish I could tell you a little more. Actually, those who are going to Gen Con this year and attend the DDO get-together, meetup, if everything works out as I think it's going to, Tolero's going to have a pretty interesting sort of bit of news about the Epic Raid that you'll be able to see at Gen Con. So some things that you might be able to see that'll be pretty cool. And that'll help explain a little bit more about what's going on, frankly, in this raid as well. So
yeah,
I'm going to keep it cryptic for the benefit of those who are going to be there, but it'll be cool. So
yeah, if you've ever been a DM in pen and paper, you kind of understand the idea of trying to find that balance of challenge versus ability to succeed.
Right.
Unless you like party killing.
As you said, it's one thing if you fail because you don't know the puzzle, or perhaps even because you lack the Twitch skills. But it's another thing if you're essentially perhaps, fighting inter-server communication or some of that sort of thing as well. And so we want to be very cognizant that when we're doing this new version of the Epic Abbott, that we don't introduce that ladder into the raid. So.
Indeed.
There is actually, I guess, one other piece of news. I don't know if you saw about that TV documentary thing.
I was going to talk about it on the Chronicle.
Okay, sounds good. We'll do it then. Yeah.
Bonus days this week, 30% crafting XP and double daily dice XP through August 10th. And while I got you here, just a little nitpicky thing. Can we get the? I love the daily double dice XP, but can we get that for like a week-long thing?
We've heard that suggestion. So far, we have not really opted to do that. Here's my suggestion, and yeah, I think you actually said this on the show. Wait for 1 week wait to take your gold roll until like a Saturday afternoon or Friday morning or any time, frankly, between Friday and, say, the end of Sunday night. And that way you'll get reset onto a pattern where your gold roll will open up during double daily dice weekends.
Yeah, I had that going for a while, and then because it doesn't go a full 7 days, it has a little bit of a time where you can kind of move it upwards.
Mm-hmm.
Particularly on the weekends, because I can end up in the mornings and the evenings sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
It slowly moved, and so now I clicked the button for the gold roll, and then I think like the next morning it was like, hey, daily double dice this week. Oh,
right.
I had a good roll too.
We sort of do have a process where these bonuses start on Thursdays and get shut off usually first thing Monday mornings, and so there would be a process change we'd have to do to do that. But well, maybe, you know.
It's something I've seen a lot before. So.
Yeah.
Let's see, store news for the week. 20% off of selected stat tomes, selected skill tomes, tomes of learning, and UMD skill tomes. That's through August 14th, and that may be the first time that UMD skill tomes have been on sale. I'm not positive on that.
I think you might be right about that. Yeah.
I don't think you've seen that very often. The freebie for the week, plus 25% crafting booster, a 25 stack with the code CRAFT7, one per account. If you like crafting, that's a really good a deal there.
Mm-hmm.
Plus 25%, you can get 25 of them. That's pretty good there.
Yeah, it really helps you level up too a little bit if you want. So.
Yes, indeed.
The other thing I could mention is this is the final weekend. Hey, Jeffrey. Yeah, this is the final weekend for our Autosbox sale. So that goes away on Monday morning, maybe even Sunday midnight, something like that. So it's through the 10th, so through Sunday here. And this is your last chance to get Autosboxes for a little while. So if that's important to you, just might want to get them this weekend.
Autosboxes are really nice.
Yep.
They're kind of expensive.
Yeah, they're deliberately so. That's true.
Yeah, that's fair. There are reasons why they're expensive. I mean, even so, they are really good. If you do the math, they're a pretty darn good deal. Because I think they're 5,000 turbine points, and I think the potions alone are like 1,500.
Yeah, I mean we're not, we try to. It's priced basically based on the price of the things in it, so that's really where it comes out to.
It's expensive, but if you look at everything that's in there, it's a pretty good deal. Let's see, the Chronicle, 104th Chronicle, Chronicle returns, had a week off. Sith DDO had a guide to epic leveling on YouTube. It was a good short guide. He kind of talked about some tactics about getting fast XP at epic levels and kind of just an overall strategy of how to go about getting XP under the current rules. Enrique looks at the Tomb of the Unhallowed. That is one of the quests in the third chain of Necropolis. Probably the easiest one out of all.
Yeah, probably. At least on that one. Although honestly, once you get tormented down, it's pretty easy as well. It just until you know it, it's kind of difficult.
I haven't run Tormented very much, but my experience was that the quest kind of had a background change, probably unintended. Because it used to be that you could feed some of the enemy cadavers in the maze and get them to move for you. And I don't think you still can, or at least the last time I did it, you couldn't do that anymore.
I haven't been in there for quite a while, but I'll have to check that one out. Because I'm pretty sure that is intended behavior that you'd be able to do that. So.
Yeah, and it was never quite clear to me if it was supposed to be intended one way or the other. But I certainly take advantage of it.
I'm not sure the blade barrier thing was necessarily intended, but...
No, that was definitely not intended. You could do that. Chain lightning, rune arms, I think all at one point in time were effective at attacking the mobs in the maze.
Yeah.
Let's see. There was a video spotlight. Fundamental looked at the beauty of Thunderholm in a new video. Basically just a collection of screenshots. And some very nice music too.
It's a higher quality video. Fundamental has done several of these where he just really gets the highest quality video he can out and posts it up on YouTube. Kind of really promotional trailers almost. Just a way to kind of let people know, hey, DDO does look pretty great, and here's some good scenes from it.
And it does indeed look pretty great. And it always the bar continually gets a little better and better every time.
Yep.
Unless it's intentionally. I mean, Wei Lun looks great, but it's not really pretty because it's not supposed to be.
Right.
It's kind of a slum, but it looks great as a slum. I mean, for what the design intent looks great.
Yeah.
It's not as pretty as a
Stormhorns. If you want your beautiful vistas, Stormhorns kind of gets that one for you.
Indeed. I'm very curious because I know the Veil was a really popular one, and you can make that really long jump in the Veil.
Yeah.
I've kind of wondered if anyone was going to break that out of Stormhorns. I haven't seen anything.
No, I think it's because there's, it's maybe you're very, very high on the Stormhorns, so you tend to run into, I think, a wall sort of before you, like you would say in the Veil.
Well, I think because the Veil, it's a length thing, and it's one high point at one end, and it drops off pretty sharp. Whereas the Stormhorns, it's more of a mountain slope,
right.
So it's a little more gradual.
Yeah.
Anyways, Army of Darkness is a new Argonestan-based guild looking for people interested in starting a new guild. The guild uses Mumble for voice chat and is looking for people interested in adventuring as a team. The comment for the week: a baby dragon thinks you are its mother. What do you do? Train it, because I'm going to have a mount in several years. What are you going to do, Jerry?
Run, but no. Find a dragon that doesn't mind having adopting. I don't know. I like the idea. There was someone said in the Chronicle comment forum thread that find a nearest kobold and convince it that it's its son. I like that idea.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
You go a lot of different ways. If you didn't know, I don't think I really mentioned on the show. If you go into the thread where the Chronicle is posted, you can answer the Chronicle comment and enter into a drawing to win. What was it, 500 turbine points?
Yep, 500.
So some free points there as an option.
It's one of those. It doesn't hurt, right? Never hurts to at least enter.
There's not usually that many people entering into it.
We're usually maybe somewhere between 75 and 100, something like that. Yeah.
So decently good odds.
Yeah.
Fan site news for the week. DDOCast reviewed Update 22. That was our last show. Thanks for the shout out. MD Interactive is having a turbine point giveaway. And DDO Gamer talked about playing DDO on a Microsoft Surface Pro. I think specifically with the touchpad.
Right. Yeah, that was interesting. I've been personally curious about that myself, and it sounds like it's maybe a little choppy, right, on the Microsoft tablet, but definitely doable.
You'd be surprised how good you can get at using a touchpad. I remember when it came out on PC, Halo, I had my laptop was brand new and could actually play it. And I had to learn how to use a touchpad in a few circumstances, which was a lot more difficult than using a mouse, but I got pretty good at it.
Right. Let me just say, MD Interactive is doing a Turbine Point giveaway. He's essentially a YouTube fan site, so he does a lot of YouTube videos almost exclusively about DDO, and is loosely affiliated with Curse. Basically asked if we had a couple of codes we could spare for a giveaway, and we're like, sure. So he is doing a Turbine Point giveaway. You can just look at the Chronicle or whatever to get a link to what you need to do. But it's a real easy process to enter, and it's basically a random drawing. So.
There was a post in the Chronicle, because the Chronicle missed a week, which was the week I think that Severlin posted all the Armor Up stuff, which we talked about last week. Lots of information there and some upcoming changes, some of which was new, some of which wasn't. And some of it which was hotly contested by the player base. But I think it was mostly the melee and range power thing was kind of where people were kind of which is kind of funny.
I don't know.
I can understand why they're kind of so concerned about it, but if you think about it, it's kind of already in the game. It's just in a different name. Because anytime you see a number times your weapon, that's essentially the same thing. It's just a multiplier.
Right.
But I can understand where I don't think I would have a strong opinion one way or the other. If it's there, great.
I mean, it's really a way to try to deal with scaling melee damage up into the higher levels of the game in a way that works design-wise with the rest of the game, right? Because you've got spell power right now, and you've got I guess what might be kindly termed outlier ranged builds that can just dish out insane amounts of damage. And this is a way to try to really bring melee up to the level that makes them competitive, running Epic Elite at level 28. So.
Which is good, because competitiveness is great, and we want builds to be very similar. I think the one thing that, and Jeff pointed this out on DDO Gamer, that I thought was kind of the thing that would be most concerning for me is not wanting to see the Thunderholm items, weapons, get outclassed really fast. And the idea that if you start adding melee power to weapons or range power to weapons, then is that going to basically make that whole system unattractive? Most because I had that experience with the alchemical weapons, where we had the alchemical weapons in Lord of Blades House and Master Artificer in House Cannith, and then maybe 4 or 5 months later, it pretty much got all. I'm trying to think of the word. They became not as good comparatively.
Right. When you think about House Cannith, though, that was really when the level cap was 20.
Yeah, it was when the level cap was 20, and it was right before we went to 25, from 20 to 25, and Motu got released, and we got all these epic weapons. And they just got really they got outclassed really fast, which was just kind of surprising.
Right.
And unfortunate.
The reality is, anything you craft now will eventually be outclassed by things that come in the future. That's just the nature of game progress.
Yeah, but can you at least wait till...
Right. The timing, you raise a valid point that perhaps, it's also important to make sure that you reward that effort for a while, right?
Particularly given how much more of an effort it takes to make a Thunderholm Tier 3 weapon than it did to make an alchemical weapon.
I think I could say. To be honest, and I can't speak for Severlin or really even the design team on this, but I would be surprised to see Thunderholm weapons get outclassed anytime too soon.
And it did. And this is not to say that it seemed like that was the intent or that was any kind of direction. It was just a comment that they're leaving the door open to add it to other gear. It didn't say weapons. It didn't give any timeline. It didn't say anything about necessarily having intent to do that very soon. It was just like, yeah, we may add this to gear later. And that's reasonable. I mean, it's not like we haven't seen that before. So, let's see. Moving right along, DDO Twitch. So you did Prove Your Worth on Wednesday, and Summer Fling was doing Tear of Deccan.
Yep. I have to say, I was a little nervous coming back straight from vacation to try to do Epic Prove Your Worth. And I did die on that spike trap pretty embarrassingly. But so much so I'm just going to own it. I actually tweeted it out with a specific thing to watch me die, because I just figured it was funny, right? So
that spike trap, particularly on Epic Elite, is pretty hard.
Well, here's the deal. I can do the spike trap pretty consistently. I didn't do it this first run because I didn't have Featherfall on. So I was just like, I buffed myself up and I got ready to go. I took that jump and just went, pronk, just right through all the spikes and just crushed. But then when we did a second run, I did have my Featherfall on, and I did the same buffing thing, and I did get hit once, but I did make it through alive. So, and when I'm playing on my regular play characters, I almost never die in that spike trap. If I'm on Epic Elite, much greater chance, because it's unforgiving, right? You really can't be hit even once. But if you're running on Epic Hard, certainly Epic Normal, but even on Epic Hard, you can take a hit for the most part and still make it through the trap. So there's a little room for error there.
I did make it through Epic Elite, and I played this a couple days ago on my Cleric, and I did get hit once with the spikes. I had the advantage of being on a Cleric so that I could hit, and I pretty much, as I'm falling, had a finger near a heal spell, so as soon as I got hit, I brought myself to full. But yeah.
I think a lot of people. I actually get surprised at how difficult some people say that spike trap is, because, frankly, if I can do it, I think a lot of other people can do it, and I pretty consistently get through that spike trap. You really only have to jump across, and you go down once, and then you cross over to the other side, and then you basically fall all the way to the ground. It's really not that difficult.
The thing about spikes is the graphic display of spikes is not necessarily reflective of the damage area of said spikes, which is kind of a consistent. Yeah. It's kind of a consistent thing throughout the game where that is true. When Reaver, the Reaver raid came out, not the heroic one, not the epic one. When that first came out, that was a lot of people's experience too. That people kind of get used to that idea.
Yeah.
Let's see. Dido Gamer talked about decking out a guild ship. They got their Kraken, and they were talking about kind of the art of filling out the ship, which seems like it would get a little bit more difficult in the future since it seems like the big ships have empty spaces even if you have everything.
Well, as someone who has a Kraken and all the amenities, there's really only one space which is missing, and that is in the I'm trying to think of the name right. The big rooms, the cargo hold, not the cargo hold, but you know what I'm talking about?
The staterooms?
Yeah, staterooms. There you go. That's the right word. We do have one less stateroom than we have available slots on a Kraken, but we have the the guild chest stuff coming in at some point here, perhaps U23.
I think it depends on how well you fill it out because some of the larger rooms combine some of the smaller rooms.
True.
So if you don't put those smaller rooms in, I think you end up with a little extra space.
Yeah, right.
Anyways, let's see. DDOCast news. I'm kind of doing a different form of survey where I'm asking players 3 questions in exchange for prizes. I am kind of popping through the different servers, usually for about 45 minutes to an hour in each server, and I think I've hit every server once. But I realize that that's not exactly the most inclusive way to do this, so I set up a thread in the fan site section of the forums, which I'll link to, that has some other ways that you can play. Basically, if you can send me an email at ddocast@gmail.com and say, hey, I want to play with questions, or you can send me a PM on the forums, or send mail, in-game mail to DDOcast1, that character name, DDOcast1, and I can reply to you there. And if you do that, you answer 3 questions. They're pretty simple opinion questions, kind of related to DDO. It's for a future event, which will hopefully be in a month or 2, depending on how things go. And in exchange for your time, I will send you a pair of collector cards or a prize if you don't have the collector card cruncher. So pretty simple. That's kind of what's going on there. Let's see. And the other thing I want to mention is episode 350 is coming up soon. And what I'm going to do for that is I'll be on Khyber on September 6th. It's a Saturday at about 4 p.m. Pacific time. And I'll just throw up an LFM, and feel free to stop by, say hi, ask questions, propose a topic. Pretty much as long as you are respectful of anyone and everyone, you have a pretty good chance of being on the final show when I send that out. So we'll be kind of recording the show in that manner, just to kind of open it up for whoever wants to be on the show, or be a part of the show. Let's see, general gaming news. There's a lot going on. We'll just start with mentioning Gen Con is next week, and there is a DDO meetup at Gen Con. I'm not sure
Friday.
if it's
Friday
Friday
night, starting at 9 p.m. at the Severlin Bar.
Is that where it is now?
Yeah, it's the Severlin is a hotel right by the convention center, and it tends to have one of the quieter bars, surprisingly. But it's a really nice little space, and so I guess it worked out last year for them. I wasn't there last year when they did it, but we used to meet at Jillian's, but Jillian's closed. So we bopped around a few different places, but apparently last year they found the Severlin bar, and it worked out just perfect. So if you just go to the Severlin Hotel and go to the bar there Friday night starting around 9 p.m., there's going to be a meetup. And I sent Samus a box of swag. So he's got some stuff to give away, and not a huge amount because I had to give him as much as he could ship, realistically bring with him, right? But then Tolero's going to probably be there as well, and she's got some stuff as well that she'll be giving away. So if you want to meet some other DDO players, and it's always a good time, trust me, it is a great time every year at Gen Con to hang out there. Is 21 plus, but
such is life.
Yep.
The PAX Prime is the end of the month. It's August 29th to September 1st. I believe DDO will not have an official viewing or anything.
Nope, sorry, we're not making it to PAX this year. Yep.
I mean, you guys pretty much have PAX East in your back door at this point.
Right.
And let's be honest, DDO is what, 8 years old? 8.5 years old?
Right.
It's not the new shiny. And that's really what PAX is about. People want to see the new shiny.
Yep.
However, there will probably at least be a DDO meetup. I have it in the back of my mind that I should coordinate something like that since I live here in PAX Prime City. So when I figure that out, I will make an announcement for that if someone else has it set up before I do. But there will be something.
At the very least, we should be able to help get you some like turbine point codes or some swag or something. We'll figure something out. So
Yeah.
If you make that happen, so.
And if nothing else, it's always fun to meet some other folks. So tentatively, I'll say that there'll be some sort of bar somewhere near the convention center on Friday night. We'll have something going on. But more details will hopefully follow to that, unless life blows up in my face, which can happen. Let's see. This is right for it. So what you mentioned earlier, Back-to-Back Productions is an award-winning television production company, I believe out of England. And they are currently working on a television documentary that explores relationships between MMO players. The film aims to challenge some of the preconceptions held about virtual gaming, portraying the MMO community in a positive light. And the production team have filled extensively with couples that first met in universe and who have since gone on to form families in real life. They are now looking to feature 2 DDO players who have met in-game and are now planning to meet in real life for the first time. If that applies to you, you can contact them. You can find this on the forums, and it's also in the Chronicle.
Yep.
You can kind of get more information about that.
It's really something they contacted us through our official sort of PR channels and said, hey, would we be willing to essentially put out a quick call to see if anyone's interested, and as a way to kind of make sure people understood that this isn't just some fly-by-night group or whatever. They asked us to do the posting on it, so I went and posted up basically their sort of call for entries. And so if basically they're in the UK, I think they're looking predominantly for someone that is planning to meet in the UK. And if that's you, it doesn't have to be, say, a romantic relationship. They're also looking for like friendships and that too. And if you are planning to maybe get together with a guildie or someone you met in game or whatever, and you happen to be meeting in the UK, go give them a call if you're interested, because I think it looks like a pretty interesting documentary there.
Indeed. And then there was one other thing that I wanted to mention in general game news. I'm going to have Jerry kind of fill us in on this because he has a little bit more of a relationship with what's going on. Lotro is doing, I think it's Extra Life. Is that right?
Yep. Really, I should clarify. This is Rick Heaton, Sapience, that is really the lead on this one. So over the years, he has been deeply involved with Extra Life, and actually, in fact, recently left Turbine to go become the community manager for Extra Life. But as part of that, they've always had a really close relationship to Lord of the Rings Online, and so we have a bunch of Lord of the Rings Online-based incentives, like in-game mounts, Mithril Edition boxes, Turbine points, just a whole bunch of kind of Lotro related things, even a Lotro lifetime account and all that sort of thing that they're giving out. So if you want to donate to Rick Heaton's Extra Life page, we can post a link to that in the show notes. It's he is a member of Team Turbine, even though he's technically left now. He counts, right? And so if you want to just do a quick search for Team Turbine on the Extra Life page, which is www.extra-life.org. They are raising money for the Children's Miracle Network hospitals, and Team Turbine in particular raises money predominantly for the local Boston Children's Hospital there. So it's a great thing. He's got a $100,000 goal. His initial goal was $35,000, and they've already smashed that. So they're going for $100,000 right now. If he gets it, he's going to get a tattoo of the Extra Life logo and stuff too. So it should be pretty cool. Anyway, you can donate as little as just a couple of bucks or whatever, and everything helps. And this does go to a good cause. It's been very closely related to Lotro over the years, largely because of Sapience's involvement in it. But there's a whole bunch of members of Team Turbine that are doing this as well. I have not yet launched into Extra Life. I kind of did a bunch of Movember stuff last year and just have not had the time to really do it. But I'd say there's a fairly good chance we'll be seeing some Extra Life stuff for DDO as we get a little bit closer to the event and all that sort of thing as well. Yeah.
I'm just going to say that I think it's pretty awesome the way that Turbine really supports supports Extra Life campaign, Movember, the One campaign a few years ago. DDO and Turbine in general has always been really supportive of that. So, way to go, guys.
We do what we can. But particularly if you're a Lotro player and you like stuff, there's some nice incentives here to donate as well. Rick Heaton really pulls out as much of the stops and works with the dev team to really do as much as we realistically can for this, and usually does pretty well. So, so there's some sweet goods, some sweet stuff for donating. Yeah.
Yeah, and if you're listening and you donate, thanks for helping them out. And hey, 35,000 is no small chunk of change. That's a great job by him. Yeah, so I just kind of wanted to highlight that a little bit. So thanks for doing that. All right, so with that, let's talk Swashbucklers.
All right.
So we're gonna build some Swashbucklers, and I'll let you kind of go first and kind of highlight your build a little bit, and maybe I'll jump in with some.
Well, actually, maybe you should start. I actually I need to call up my build inside of the game here quick, just so I can reference it.
I can start then. I guess I said this before at the beginning of the show. We're gonna have kind of two very different styles of build here. Jerry's is going to be a pure class bard swashbuckler. Mine is going to be much more multi-class, and it's going to kind of do a couple things for us. One, it'll really emphasize how Swashbuckler is actually a really good kind of multi-class enhancement tree if you don't want to necessarily be a full bard, but also kind of highlight some theory behind multi-class as well. Start with the stats. So dexterity is going to be your primary tree. I went halfling with the race. 16, a 16 gets you an 18 with the +2 from halfling. I went 16 with constitution, 4 with intelligence, dumped wisdom and charisma, and then you don't necessarily have to go this route. I wanted a 13 for strength so that I could get power attack. And I'll talk about why I wanted that a little bit later. Halflings get a -2 to strength, so I had to go up. What I did was I took a 12 that gets knocked down to a 10, and then use a +3 strength tome. So this kind of involves a +3 strength tome. It's not necessarily something you have to do. I'll kind of explain why I wanted this feat, why I wanted power attack later when I talk about feats. But that's kind of the overall statting. Is Dex is your primary. I didn't go up to 18 or 20 with a halfling because it's a lot more expensive, and I wanted to kind of spread stats around, which tends to work a little better when you're doing multi-class. Is go up to 16s, which costs you 10 points a stat, as opposed to an 18 costs you 16, so it's a lot more expensive for the last couple of points. Class split. I went 13 rogue, 5 bard, 2 fighter. The idea here is you get two levels of rogue to get evasion really fast, and then take bard, 5 levels of bard to get your swashbuckling. Because we want to get those. Take the fighter levels whenever you can take the feats that I'll say are kind of good fighter feats to take. And then the other nice thing here is you kind of if you're ever taking rogue as a part of a splash multi-class build, you should always take the first level because you get way more skill points that way. And then you kind of, if you're going to do a lot of rogue, you kind of want to backfill your rogue levels to kind of catch up on your trapping skills, particularly if you have like fighter levels or something that's going to drop your skills down for a few levels. You're not going to get a lot of trapping skills for those levels. Backfill some rogue levels to kind of really pump those up if you want to have rogue skills. All right, feats on this build: single weapon fighting, improved single weapon fighting, greater single weapon fighting. Pretty much as soon as you can get them. Which I didn't do the math, and I did this build on Lemania, but didn't kind of write down a few things. This is one of them. I think you can get single weapon fighting at level 1 even with no base attack bonus, which is a really nice thing about that tree or that feat line. It does not have the first one does not have a base attack bonus requirement. The other ones do, and because you're going to be rogue and bard, you're not going to have a very high base attack bonus. So you're looking at probably level 9 or 15 before 9 and 15 before you can get those 2 feats. Weapon finesse. This is a dex build.
Wait a second. Are you talking about single weapon fighting?
Yeah.
My understanding of single weapon fighting basically just has a balance requirement.
I think improved has +6 base attack bonus.
Oh right, yeah, +6. You're right.
The initial feat does not have a base attack bonus, which is really important to note because rogues and bards don't get any base attack bonus level 1. A couple other classes do that as well. So they don't actually get a +1 to their base attack bonus until level 2. But with single weapon fighting, that's not an issue. So you can take that as your first feat, which is really good. You may not use it at low levels, but you can get it out of the way and stuff like that. We want weapon finesse because this is a dex build. That's why we took a lot of dexterity. Precision. What precision does, it works in conjunction with one of the enhancements in the Swashbuckler tree to effectively become power attack, but the feat itself gives you a 25% chance to bypass fortification while you're in the stance, which is pretty handy. I also took cleave. You don't actually have to take cleave. The reason why I took it was it makes the legendary dreadnought tree a lot better because you can use some of the special attacks out of it. You had to have cleave to take them. I also took dodge, which is 3% to dodge. Dodge and cleave are kind of two feats that you don't necessarily need to take. It kind of depends on your playstyle. But I needed to fill in a couple of feats here. Those are the heroic feats. The two fighter feats I took were improved critical piercing and power attack. And again, you kind of want to take your fighter levels whenever you can take those two feats. Power attack is going to be something you won't be able to take until you get to strength 13. Improved critical, you need to get a +8 base attack bonus. Now, the reason why I took power attack is because they are changing the requirements for overwhelming critical. To basically be, you need improved critical, and you need power attack. An overwhelming critical gives you +1 to your critical multiplier on a 19 or 20, which we like. That's a really good feat for melee. So my epic feats, 21 I took overwhelming critical, 24 I took improved sneak attack, and 27 I took blinding speed. And then with the rogues get 2 feats. I took improved evasion and opportunist. Improved evasion is kind of a no-brainer, and then opportunist again reduces fortification. And I think might actually give some double strike. I'm not positive on that. And then for one of the destiny feats, I took perfect single weapon fighting. The other one I kind of left blank because there wasn't anything that necessarily stood out. That really stood out. What you can see from these feats is, and kind of I took rogue as well. This is not this build's going to rely a lot on sneak attack to do a lot of damage. It should be a pretty high DPS character. This is the character a tweaking, a slightly newer, updated version of what I did the show when I did Party Crash. We did the Party Crashers walkthrough. This was the character that I was playing. I couldn't take overwhelming critical because of the current restrictions on feats, and this is not actually something you can't actually take it yet. You have to wait till probably update 23 when they change some of the feats. This is kind of stuff they're talking about in Armor Up. But so this build's going to have a lot of good attack rate, using dexterity to hit and to damage, which will cover enhancements. The power attack you're not going to use a lot because you can use precision in conjunction with the bard tree. You can use cleave pretty regularly though, and then it'll kind of open up some other options as well. So those are kind of the feats. Let's see, balance for skills. We need some balance for single weapon fighting requirements. Trap skills because we're a rogue primarily. UMD. You're not going to have a lot of bard spells for healing, so that's going to have to kind of come through UMD. And you can take a few ranks of perform. That'll give you that'll kind of affect some of the Swashbuckler DCs, so that can be helpful as well. Spells, you don't get a lot of spells because you're only going to be a level 5 bard. You can get blur and enchant weapon through enchant weapon takes an enhancement. You can get those spells, which can be helpful, particularly blur for defenses. Enhancements. Swashbuckler is kind of the primary tree. That's where we're going to go up to tier 5, particularly the ability that turns precision into power attack. You won't be able to get a lot of the core abilities because we're only level 5 bard. But a lot of that stuff is improved evasion and uncanny dodge, which you get through rogue levels anyways. There's kind of a choice here. If you want to be more defensive, you can use bucklers. If you want to be more offensive, don't use bucklers because you get like plus 10% double strike. So it kind of depends on which way you want to go. Either way is a viable route. The other tree that we're going to really be in is the rogue assassin tree. You can get dex to damage for anything that you can use weapon finesse on, which is the kind of weapons we're going to be using. You can get poison blades. There's a bunch of sneak attack die in there. That's kind of a primary DPS tree. So those are your kind of two primary trees, Swashbuckler and Assassin. Then you can look at War Chanter. You can get some fun stuff in there, particularly now that they have chance. Don't use songs, which you won't have a lot of. And then you'll probably want to pick up Scroll Mastery, and you can do that, I believe, either in Mechanic or Spellsinger. That'll just make your scrolling a little bit more effective. Gear, you want light armor, so you can still use evasion as far as armor goes. In terms of weapons, you're looking for rapiers and light weapons. Basically, rapiers and short swords are kind of your two primary things. You're a single weapon fighter, so you're only going to use one. You don't need to find stuff for your offhand. Select some really good ones. The Celestia and Blazerde, those are both from Caught in the Web. The rapier and the short sword are really good. From there, they're hard to get, but they're really good. Something that's a little easier to get, if you get cleric commendations from Evening Star, there's a short sword there. That's it has a little bit of a random effect on it, but it can be really good versus undead. The Mutineer's Blade is another great undead option. Those are kind of the ones that always stuck out in my mind. You can, of course, get a Thunderholm rapier as well, or a short sword. If you're going to go with bucklers, there's not a lot of great named options, but there is the Tiller from Three Belt Cove that has a lot of good defense stuff on it. Something to consider so you can get dodge bonus. Anything that's got dodge bonus is going to be good for you. If you are going kind of defensive, and if you take the buckler enhancement that gives you 10% to dodge while you're swashbuckling, you're going to want to look at increasing your maximum dodge bonuses, because you will probably hit that 25% cap pretty easily. Or if you're using light armor, it might be lower based on the armor, the maximum dexterity bonus. So you might have to look at increasing your max dex bonus and dodge cap in that regards. And threat reduction. We like threat reduction in any way we can get it. This is not a tank build. This is it's a swashbuckling rogue. Rogues like to stab things in the back. They don't like to have a lot of attention, and you will get it because you will do a lot of damage. I found this in Jerry. Remember when we did Party Crashers? I did some pretty serious damage going through on this build. So you can get a pretty good thing going there. As far as past lives, there's nothing that necessarily really stands out. Pretty much anything that would help a normal melee. There's not anything that's like a really critical. This could actually be a really good first life build as well. Be pretty successful. Destinies, Dreadnought will be a really good Destiny. You can do a lot of damage out of that. That's why I took Cleave and Power Attack, or part of the reason I took Power Attack and Cleave, is to really open up Dreadnought, because you can use abilities that do 5 times weapon damage in there if you have those feats. Fury of the Wild, Divine Crusader, Sentinel. If you can utilize Shadow Dancer well, that's also a good tree. I will say that I am pretty lousy at using the Shadow Dancer tree. For whatever reason, I'm not very good at getting the things to work and the counter stuff and the shadow counters and stuff like that. Some variations, if you like, you can. And this is what I did on the build that I actually did. Is I took spring mobility and spring attack because I couldn't. There was no real point in getting power attack and cleave for overwhelming critical. So you can go that route. I don't generally take those feats. I don't usually find them to be necessary for playing the game, but they do give you some dodge bonus as well, and they raise your maximum dexterity bonus. Mobility does. Some of the things you can do, if you lose the fighter levels, you can go for level 7 Bard, and you can get haste. It won't be a very long haste, because you're only at 7 Bard, but you can do that as well. So that's kind of the overview of the build. I kind of showed this a few times. The idea here is it's a rogue swashbuckler. It's really utilizing the enhancement tree from bards, the swashbuckler enhancement tree, and applying it to rogues. As I kind of said, the swashbuckler tree really lends itself to being a multi-class tree. If you want to be primarily melee, you don't really want to be a bard, but you're interested in trying out the single weapon fighting and swashbuckler thing, you can totally do that. I've also seen a lot of variations of like with a lot of fighter levels and a couple bard levels to get to do that. Another good split would be 12. You can do 12 fighter, 7 bard, or 12 fighter, 5 bard, and 2 rogue. You still get invasion that way. So those are some options as well. The way that you would play this character is kind of like you play any other rogue. You really don't want to get a lot of aggro. You let other people go in first, get the aggro and stab things in the back so you can get your sneak attack damage, because that's where you get a lot of extra damage on this build. I think that's kind of the highlight. Anything you want to add to this, Jerry?
No. It sounds like it's mostly not a bard.
It really is not a bard. It really is a rogue. That's how this character is going to play. And even if you do the fighter, 12 fighter, was it 12?
Hey, I'm sorry, maybe I just didn't hear it, but do you have an ability that's giving you dex to damage?
Yeah, it's in the assassin tree in rogue. It's one of the core abilities.
Because that would be critical on that build.
Yeah, really. That's going to help you a lot for your damage. Although, in reality, it's not going to be. It'll add a significant amount of damage, but your sneak attack damage is really going to give you a lot more than anything else. Now, having said that, with single weapon fighting feats, I believe you get up to double your modifier, right, to damage.
Well, it depends on what it's. Well, it's single weapon fighting. Let me check that.
I think that's how those feats work. They increase your attack speed. So this character is going to have a lot of attack speed, particularly once you get blinding speed and you have permanent haste on. It'll work really well. This is it's a really good versatile build. It's not a bard. It's not a spellcaster. You'll have a little bit of access to spells, and Blur is probably the one that you're going to use the most, just because you'll have it. Level 5 bards will have, I believe, one or two level 2 spells. So you'll be able to cast Blur. It's not going to last very long. I think it's only going to last about 5 minutes. But it's something you can spend your spell points on. You're not going to have a lot of spell points either. One nice thing about this build, when you're talking about destinies, there's a lot of destinies abilities that require spell points. You'll have a basic pool of spell points with Bard.
No, single weapon fighting does not increase your critical threat range. The Swashbuckler does, depending on the weapon you're using. But it's the 10% attack speed that you'll get from single weapon fighting. Where you're going to get that critical multiplier is with your swashbuckling stance. You get a +1 multiplier if you're using, say, shuriken, throwing axe, throwing hammer, kukri, rapier, dagger, short sword, or throwing dagger. That's the critical multiplier, and you can increase your critical threat range only on certain things. Dagger, short sword, light mace, light hammer, common sickle dart. There's a whole bunch of them there. You can look it up on the feet. But predominantly, and most importantly, not the rapier. If you have a rapier, which I do on my build, you do not get the increased threat range, but you do get a +1 increased multiplier. So
yeah, they're already there. No, what I was looking at is the improved single weapon fighting. You get to add 1.5 times your ability score to damage.
Right.
And greater single weapon fighting, you get to add double of that, which is actually better than two-handed fighting gets. Two-handed fighting, you get. So a two-handed weapon, you get 1.5 times your strength bonus naturally. The nice thing about single weapon fighting is it applies to whatever ability you're using, whatever stat score you're using, which is nice.
Yes, indeed. That's pretty good. And I can talk a little bit about that in my build. Now, I should note that I already know that there are some things that I would like to change with my build. I may well end up doing, say, a respec here to tweak a few things now that I've actually played it and all that sort of thing. But I can talk a little bit in general. So where I started from is I was going to TR, ETR, and then TR my what started as a Favored Soul Monk. So I was going to get the Favored Soul Past Life for a little bit of Healing Amp, or rather positive and negative energy spell power, and a little tiny amount of PRR, but not significant. But so I knew I was going to do that. And the other thing I was going to do is I wanted to give myself a 36-point build in this character, so I essentially TR'd him twice, so that I could get up to 36 points. So given that, yeah?
I want to jump in real quick. I think, let's see, when I did my build, it's actually, I know I didn't spend more than 32 points. So it is, if you have extra points, you can kind of throw them around wherever you like. But I just wanted to mention that it's, again, that build that I just did is actually pretty conducive to a newer character, a first life character. Right. You don't need to have a lot of build points.
Yeah. So for me, I mean, like I said, I had a first life guy sitting at level 28. And I figured the Swashbuckler came out to be a good time to increase this person's overall power, get some past lives in, get epic past life feat, that kind of thing. So, and I wanted to be 36 points. So essentially, what it is, I got the Favored Soul past life, and then I didn't take it, but I got the heroic past life, and then I got to level 20 again as a wizard life because I wanted the extra DC. The heroic past life for the arcane initiate gives you a +1 to the DC of the spells you cast. And so, predominantly given that thinking, I really wanted to go for a crowd control bard. Someone that I could really try to boost up their DCs as well as I could. So rather than, say, focus on what you did, Patrick, say a sneak attack damage rogue type, I really wanted to just get my DCs about as high as I felt I could with a pure bard build. The reason I wanted to stay pure was really two reasons. One, I wanted to experience what it was like to play a pure 20 bard as a swashbuckler, so really it was just academic as much as anything. But the other thing is I've always liked pure classes, and I know that they tend to often not quite meet the power range of, say, what you can achieve by multi-classing, but I really wanted to see just how much I could eke out of a pure bard here. So that was really my consideration. It wasn't really a specific power reason. It was really just kind of a challenge to see what I could do with a pure bard. The other thing I went that a lot of people would scoff at is I went drow. And I have to admit, I largely went drow because I wanted to piss off Samus Garobo. Because he doesn't like it when I go drow, and so I went drow, mostly so I could tell him I went drow and have him get mad at me for it. But I also went drow because the charisma boost. So one of the key things in the Swashbuckler enhancement tree is at level 3, you can get an enhancement that will allow you to do your charisma for damage. Now, since charisma also affects a lot of the bard skills, it made sense to really combine as much of my damage with my charisma. So not only am I doing extra damage with a high charisma, but I'm also getting the benefits of that high charisma in terms of some of the crowd control things that I'd be using, right? So, I predominantly went with a large charisma and took all my level up points in charisma. That was my main stat, basically charisma and constitution. I did give myself a little bit of dex. I started with a base 12 just so that I could, because reflex saves are important, and it just never hurts to have a little bit higher dex. Now, I do have a +6 tome that I also was sitting on for dexterity, so that played someone into that as well. I was able to get, just through stats and things like that, too, to get my dex up a little bit there to help with that. And I did give myself a little bit of strength as well, just because I tend to find that if you don't give yourself at least a little bit of strength, you can have some encumbrance issues, until I was able to get sort of charisma to damage or whatever. It never hurts to have a little strength. But predominantly I went charisma and constitution for my base stats. I did quick round up my intelligence and wisdom just so that I wasn't getting any negatives there. Particularly with wisdom, I wanted to was a saving throw thing. Intelligence is just because I knew that I would need basically as many skill points as I could get.
Something I want to jump into. You're talking about strength and encumbrance issues. That's an important thing to note when you're talking about characters with evasion.
Right.
And especially, it's really easy to kind of forget on a pure bard that you can get evasion through the Swashbuckler tree. If you're encumbered, you don't get evasion. It negates your evasion, so you want to kind of pay attention to that.
And I didn't give myself much. I think I started with a base 12 on strength, so not a huge investment, but just enough to kind of help shore that up, so it wasn't an issue while I was going through my lives. I tend to carry a lot of gear.
Generally speaking, if you get like a +2 tome and a +6 item,
Yep.
even at an 8, you should be fine.
Yeah.
The weight thing really kind of ramps up pretty quick. So moderate strength will take care of you, no problem. But it's something to note when we're talking about evasion builds.
Yeah, if I was going to multi-class, particularly if I was going to Splash Monk, I would probably not have done that strength bonus and then kick that into Wisdom instead just for the extra couple of AC points or whatever. But for me, since I knew I was going pure, I figured it was all right.
You can't Splash Monk with a bard.
Oh, you're right. Because of the alignment restrictions.
Right. Monks have to be lawful. Bards have to be lawful.
Sorry, I knew that. So in terms of skills, the first thing I wanted to do was shore up my balance. I basically put as much into balance as I could, just so I could unlock largely fire and forget. I could unlock the single weapon fighting feats when I hit that base attack bonus base without having to worry about my balance skill. But I also went with bluff because bluff is a really good way to pull mobs, and it is a charisma-based skill, so it would mix well with being basically using a charisma as your main stat. I did give myself some concentration. I believe I'm up to about 27 now on concentration. That is one of the weaknesses, frankly, in this build, is I wasn't able to fit in Quicken in my feat selection, and I really would have preferred that because, say, especially when you're casting a lot of, say, Otto's Sphere of Dancing and some of the sort of crowd control effects, it's really nice to not have to worry about making a concentration check and to get that stuff off faster. But since I knew that I was going to be fairly feat-starved, I did not give myself Quicken. And so I tried to give myself some concentration there. I did not go for any rogue abilities in that. I did go for UMD because, again, Charisma is the main thing for that. And so now sitting at level 23, which is what I currently am, I've got a UMD of 52, which is really more than enough for just about anything I need to do with it. I did give myself Spellcraft, just because mostly Spellcraft gives you some spell power. I knew I was never going to be a primary healer, but I tend to solo a lot for one and do backup healing, and so I wanted to basically get myself as much spell power as I could mostly for healing abilities, since especially I have the Favored Soul sort of past life there as well.
That comes out of the heal skill, not Spellcraft, right? Positive. For spell power, positive spell power and negative spell power comes out heal.
Okay, so that's a good question. So I'm trying to. You're right. Actually, I did do that. So why did I give myself Spellcraft?
You're probably taking Perform, I'm assuming, because you're a bard.
Yeah, Perform. Yeah,
your Sonic spell power.
That's it. Sonic, right.
Spellcraft. Spellcraft is acid, fire, cold, electric, and untyped, and physical. And anything's not covered out really well. Repair.
That's actually a good question. I'm not sure why I gave myself, or did I even give myself much ranks?
You might be thinking of you get Sonic spell power out of Perform, which might have been what you're thinking about.
You're right. I'm talking off the top of my head here, so you're right. I don't actually scratch that then. I don't know why I took some Spellcraft. I didn't take a lot, but I did take a little bit. So
it does help if you kind of go into like a draconic tree or something like that. You can get some nice additions to there.
Well, maybe there's a mistake there too. Otherwise, Perform, max out Perform every chance I get. Just max that out on level up. But predominantly, you're right. I got a little sidetracked on Spellcraft here. Predominantly, my main skill focus was use magic device, Perform, jump because I always need jump, bluff, and then concentration and balance. Those were really the main ones I went for on my skill tree there. And do I need to explain perform at all? I mean, perform, if you're gonna go for bard skills, you just need as high a perform as you can.
You need perform not only because it uses it's a DC for fascinate, as well as some swashbuckler stuff, but it's also you have to actually hit specific ranks, not just like your modifier. You have to hit specific ranks to unlock songs.
Yep.
If you're bard, max perform, done.
Yep. Okay, so looking at my feats here, past lives, like I said, I got an epic past life from the favored soul of power over life and death. That's +10 positive and negative energy spell power, and +3 PRR per stack of it, which I only have one stack, so not a big thing. I did get the Arcane Initiate, take that because of the +1 DCs to the spells I cast. The Magic Missile thing was actually fairly handy at low levels as well, but I don't really use it really anymore. I did get the favored soul past life, which gets me a +1 to spell penetration, and a couple of spell points, and then with the wizard heroic past life, I got +2 to a spell penetration checks and the DCs of the wands I use, but I don't really use a lot of wands, so predominantly that was just it was mostly for the Arcane Initiate there. In terms of the other things I got, the only area that I really I knew I wanted to go for crowd control, predominantly the enchantment line, because a lot of the bard stuff that I want to use is from the enchantment school. So that meant I really wanted to go for spell focus and greater spell focus. And because I was a drow as opposed to, say, a human, and because I wasn't, say, splashing anything like a fighter or whatever, I was a little feat starved in trying to make this work, because I wanted to take as many of the single weapon fighting lines as I could. So I was kind of having to go for both spell focus and single weapon fighting, but I did get both single weapon fighting and improved single weapon fighting, and if I had had the opportunity, I would get greater single weapon fighting as well. But unfortunately, because I wanted to take, say, greater spell focus enchantment and spell focus enchantment and heighten, I did not really end up having the extra feat slot to do greater two-weapon or single weapon fighting, which is potentially a mistake. Like I said, if I was to do that again, I think I might want to go for the greater single weapon fighting line, predominantly because it's an extra plus 50% boost to your weapon damage from your main attribute, which in my case is charisma. I'm currently at level 23, sitting at a 49 charisma, so that doesn't hurt at all. That's like an extra plus 9. Essentially, an extra 4 or 5 points of base damage that I could have done there. I did not take a power attack, although, again, if I had been able to fit that in, I perhaps would have. And that's really
Would you take power attack over precision?
Well, I didn't take precision either, but
right,
I probably would have. But that's because I knew I was going to basically be melee.
Well, because the bard, the reason I ask is the Swashbuckler tree on its tier 5 level has an ability that adds what you would get for power attack into precision.
True. Right, and that would be Thread the Needle. No, I didn't actually even end up taking Thread the Needle, although, again, perhaps that would be another way to go. Again, I was fairly feat-starved, right? I did not have enough extra feats to do everything I wanted to do, because what am I missing right now? Something like power attack or precision, quicken, and greater single weapon fighting. And all three of those would be really good things to have had into this build, but because I was sort of splitting my desires between crowd control and the single weapon fighting line, I just didn't have enough feats for it all. For spells, I largely went crowd control because I was focusing on enchantment DCs, so I have everything from suggestion, mass suggestion. A nice combination is mind fog and autosphere of dancing. Reason for that is autosphere of dancing is a will save in terms of people to enter it, and the mind fog spell gives a -10 penalty to will saves for those who are in it. So you drop down the autosphere of dancing and then do a mind fog in it, and any creatures that go inside of it are making a -10 to their will save on that, which means they're dancing a lot more, which means I can use my coup de grace a lot more on them. I have to admit that coup de grace was a big consideration in this build, because that thing is very nice in my opinion. Besides just being at level 23 here, a +3 weapon attack. It also, kills enemies that are dancing, dazed, fascinated, mesmerized, paralyzed, petrified, sleeping, stunned, or tripped, unless they succeed a fortitude save, which is a d20 plus your perform skill. Well, since I'm a pure bard and I have as basically good a perform skill as I can have, that means they don't tend to save very often against it. And but the trick is to get them into a state where they can be dancing, dazed, paralyzed, and all that sort of thing. There's a whole bunch of ways to do that. Particularly, I find Autosphere of Dancing is great because it's AoE. It's fairly easy to prepare for. It's fairly easy to drag mobs into. And particularly with this Mind Fog combination there, it tends to work out fairly well for me. But I do have other abilities as well, like I find myself using Otto's Irresistible Dance. That's a single target version of that as well. It's a good way to sort of, for even a battle here, I can, like, what I'll do is I'll do the Autosphere of Dancing. I will run up, perhaps invisible, target someone with Irresistible Dance, take out one mob, aggro the rest, drag them back into the Autosphere, and then either me or the party and me can really take care of them from there.
Just want to jump in to kind of bounce off of the mind fog thing you're talking about. You can also use Hypnotism, which also reduces will saves by 3.
True.
And there's no save on that. There's a save effect for to actually get hypnotized, but the minus 3 is also applied.
I actually used, up until I got into the upper levels, Hypnotism was a key spell for me because it would allow me to use coup de grace and some other things as well, and just generally deal with aggro. It's a great low-level spell to help manage aggro, and because it's in the enchantment school and all that sort of thing, I'm pretty good about that one there as well. So, like I say, that's basically the spells. I'm really about charming and getting people into a state where I can coup de grace them, manage aggro. I do, of course, have, say, invisibility, hold monsters, another good one. I do take blur, and all that sort of basic stuff that you get, because why not? Because who likes to get hit? And then I did max out my, I did take Cure Moderate Mass and Cure Light Mass and some other cure spells just to kind of help me out in keeping myself and backup healing on the party alive. So for the enhancement tree, and I wish I could call this up for you right now, but unfortunately I'm on my, like I said, we had some technical difficulties. I predominantly focused on the Swashbuckler tree. And this was mostly done prior to the Spellsinger and War Chanter changes, so I may end up actually respecking some of this. But I took all the way up the core enhancements to the capstone, because I wanted the additional double strike and damage and all the rest of that sort of stuff that you get for it. I went with On Your Toes, maxed that out for the increased dodge. I took a Blow by Blow. That's a one I just really keep using all the time during attacking. It's a +3 critical threat range and an additional 3d6 extra sonic. Also helps reduce some threat, although that doesn't really play a lot in this particular build. But one of the things, with the rapier single weapon fighting, I'm really focusing on the critical hits. I have on the top tier of my Swashbuckler tree exploit weakness, which means every time I do not critically hit, I get an insight bonus to my critical threat range until I do. End result is I am critically hitting a lot, particularly because I've got a rapier, and I did take the improved crit piercing, because why not, right? Again, it's a good thing to have for this. And that was one of my feats actually I took as well. So I'm really focusing on the critical hit. So for enhancements, I went with charisma to damage, which I took the exploit weakness, like I say, blow by blow. Did fast movement just because I like running faster, and it's +1% faster for each of my bard levels. Since I was going a pure bard, that gives me an extra 20% faster, which is nice. I'm keeping up with the monks there. And sword dance, when swashbuckling, if they miss me, I do 1d20 sonic damage per bard level against them. This is great until you go into mine's blanking out. The one in the Veil of Twilight where you gotta keep the spiders alive.
Crimson Foot.
Right. Actually, you can deal with it by turning off swashbuckling in that. Yeah. So, but that's a nice way to do it, because I'm doing 20d20 sonic damage when they miss me. So that's a nice little extra DPS boost. Smooth Flourishes is the one that really was a key one for my my build, and I focused to get 2 there as quick as I could, because that does get charisma to damage with my weapon while single weapon fighting. I took the charisma levels up, of course. I took resonant arms, because while swashbuckling, which I pretty much always am, I do an extra 66 on critical hits, and this does scale with spell power as well. And then for skirmisher, I did take a buckler. I am a buckler single weapon fighting build. I wanted the extra dodge there in particular. The skirmisher ability not only gives you a 10% dodge, but also allows you to use a buckler and get the benefits from single weapon fighting as well. I also took elegant footwork. When enemies miss me while swashbuckling, they have a 20% chance to be knocked down with no saving throw. Simply 1 in 5 chance to get knocked down, provided they can be knocked down. But what that means, because I've got, say, sword dance and elegant footwork, it's a pretty darn good chance that either I'm going to critically hit them and do a whole bunch of damage, or they're going to miss me and get knocked down, or they're going to miss me and take a whole bunch of sonic damage. And if they miss me and get knocked down, I can use coup de grace against them again as well to take them out with 1 hit. So it's really focused. This whole build is largely focused. I wouldn't say entirely focused on coup de grace, but it's one of those that really makes a difference in this particular build there. I don't know what else I could do. Like I say, I'm pure bard, and I am a drow. Largely for the extra charisma, so I could max out at 18 and that, and get some spell resistance as well. I did do a couple of splashes on War Chanter. The first couple, mostly for a little bit extra hit points. Inspire Courage, doing a little bit extra damage, a little extra con. Let's see, what else did I take? I gave myself like Rough and Ready for an extra 6 armor class and PRR. I did take Iced Edges, although I would probably not do that again. And again, took Words of Encouragement for an extra temporary hit points and positive spell power with Inspire Courage. I did splash into the Spellsinger tree, the Yellow Marigold Crown for an extra +1 to DCs of Enchantment. I did take an extra point of Charisma from that.
When you redo it, you'll probably take a lot more Spellsinger, because the pass-on enhancements for bards, the Spellsinger core abilities give you +1 to your DCs all over the place.
Right. I'm actually already there. I do have the first 3 cores of Spellsinger, predominantly again for the DC bonus, although the critical chance for Sonic stuff doesn't hurt either. But predominantly is just for the DC. I did take Lingering Songs. I did take Willful for a small boost to my saving throws, and I did take Spell Song Trance. Predominantly as a way to discount spell point costs for party buffing at the start of a dungeon.
Yeah, I would say based on the... I'm going to jump in here a little quick. I think based on the goals you set out of being crowd control and Swashbuckler, I would think that you're probably going to spend a lot of points in the Swashbuckler tree and the Spellsinger tree to really kind of boost those up. The War Chanter is going to be the one that you're going to be really kind of dabbling in.
I really am. I don't have anything above Tier 2, and really it was very specific reasons why I did it. And like I say, I'll probably respec out the Iced Edges, just because I thought a little base damage wouldn't hurt. I had a couple points left over. But I think in general I would have been better off putting that at least into Spellsinger. I did take just a couple from the racial enhancement as well. I took a Spell Resistance 1 just to open up the tree. I did give myself an extra point of Charisma from the Drow tree, and then predominantly the reason I went into the Drow tree at all was for Zendric weapon training. It gives me +1 to hit and +1 to damage with my rapiers. Since I'm largely a rapier-focused single weapon fighting build, the extra base damage just never hurts. So.
Yeah, that can be a strong choice. If it was me, I'd probably stick more to my bard's a Drow, and I didn't use that enhancement tree at all. I would say that he's not a Swashbuckler either. He's kind of a Spellsinger War Chanter. He's a healing and stuff. If he pulls out a weapon, it's usually kind of because he has nothing else to do.
Right.
But I think you kind of find an interesting dichotomy here between your Swashbuckler and the Spellsinger tree, I think.
Right.
So you're talking about like really focusing in crowd control and then kind of using Swashbucklers kind of to augment that.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's kind of weird.
Well, I mean, really, the idea is that particularly, when soloing, and I do that a fair amount. I can go in. because one thing with single weapon fighting is it is single target fighting for the most part. So me being surrounded by enemies trying to kill me is probably not a position I want to be in, which is why I figured with crowd control you basically try to mitigate as much sort of ability for them to get to you as you can and sort of pick them off one by one with your single weapon fighting stuff, not only with coup de grace, but also just with your ability to do lots of critical damage and all that sort of thing. I'm dishing out a pretty fair amount of damage, although again I really wish I could have fit in greater single weapon fighting into this build, because it would have really had a nice increase in damage output there as well.
This build's going to have a lot of feat problems. I mean, the build I had some feat. It was pretty tight on feats, and the fighter levels really help on that. But this one, particularly trying to do combat and some spell casting, you kind of have to make some choices. And just kind of on the enhancement side, I kind of wanted to cover really quick. Like, you have some interesting choices here because you've got your tier 5 ability and then kind of that capstone ability. And you're only able to do one of each of those from each tree. The Swashbuckler capstone gives you evasion, which is really nice.
Right, I didn't even get into that yet. Right, exactly.
The Spell Singer one gives you the spell Heal and Wail the Banshee, which is fantastic. I mean, even if you can't like actually wail things reliably, it does neg levels, which is really good. So I think you kind of have to choose one of those two. Again, it's going to kind of define where do you want your character more to land. Do you want to be more on the spell casting, crowd control, even like healing side of things, or do you want to be more on the Swashbuckler side of things? Right. And I'll say that you can heal just fine on a bard without having the heal spell.
Especially with UMD, you can just scroll it.
With UMD, I mean, I did this for years with UMD. And I would say if you want to be more swashbucklerly, then take the capstone out of the Swashbuckler one. The other thing is, you look at the top tree of the tier 5 abilities, and Spellsinger has some nice crowd controlling abilities. We're talking about Swashbucklers. If you want to be more of a Swashbuckler, I would say obviously go with the tier 5 and Swashbuckler.
Right, well, especially if, with Swashbuckler being about basically critically hitting frequently, it made a lot of sense for me to be a rapier, take the single weapon line up, and then go with exploit weakness, because I critically hit a lot. I mean, I probably critically hit more often than I don't critically hit at this point, and it just really makes a difference. I don't know if I mentioned this. I did take Second Skin and invested all 3 points in it. It gives me a +6 to my reflex saves and a +6 to the max dex bonus of my armor. I only needed that because I didn't really invest a lot into dexterity, and I did want to get whatever I could there. But I also wanted to get my reflex save up, because reflex save is very important, and particularly because I wanted to get evasion by taking level 20 as a bard there. I knew I was going to need it. So, and there's still more I can do there, frankly. I've only got a reflex of 44 right now at level 23. That's something I need to invest a little more in and do. I don't know if I have a resistance item in particular, which I absolutely need on this character. But
yeah, I would say just on the feet side of things, just some thoughts. Your feet selection was great. Obviously, I would really try and fit Quicken in. It's kind of a tough.
It is. I was actually thinking, I was hoping that I could find a way to do it, and then I was never able to actually fit that sucker in. So
if it was me, and I'm making these are choices that are going to make you more of a swashbuckler, which is kind of what we're talking about, than a crowd controller. I would say get single weapon, get all the way up to greater single weapon fighting, and get improved critical. That's going to be 4 of your feats, which means you get 3 other heroic feats under these 3 epic feats. I would probably take Quicken as one of them, either Spell Focus or the Wizard Past Life feat as another one, and probably Extend, just because but you're starting to make some really tough choices here.
Yeah.
But again, these are choices that are more towards I want to be a swashbuckler more than a crowd controller. The reason why I'm kind of looking at losing some of the DC to those is you could think about taking. I don't remember if you took Heighten or not. You could think about taking Heighten, but most of the spells, and there's nothing wrong with taking Heighten. And it's a great feat if you want to be a DC caster. The Bard spells are a lot of the Bard spells that you're probably going to be using for DCs. Auto Irresistible Dance and Irresistible Dance are slick spells. You can't heighten them. So
well, autos is 4, so I could get a +2 on that. But
the sphere
yeah.
is a level 6 spell, I think.
Yeah, right.
So are you gonna get as much out of heighten? Again, this is where you're making choices, right? Like, do you want to be a spellcast, more focusing on spellcasting, or more focusing on swashbuckling? This is kind of choices you're gonna be making.
Right.
So I would, and you're using most of those spells. The other thing is you have Fascinate,
Right. Yeah.
which is going to be better than any spell you're likely to cast anyways. So I'd probably end up relying more on that, which has its pros and cons, and kind of focus more on your swashbuckling tree. Again, not to say that one choice of set of choices is better than the other. It depends on what you're focusing on, right?
Part of it too was hypnotism in this build is so effective at even higher levels that I felt by heightening it, it would really make the difference there. So besides the autosphere and hypnotism, it just seemed like heighten would really make sense for this build a lot. I think you're right that perhaps I could swap that out for, I don't know, greater single weapon fighting or quicken would probably overall maybe benefit this build a little bit more strongly. But but at the time, it seemed like the way to go.
Your build is more focused on the spell casting, the DCs.
Yeah.
Than the kind of feats that I just kind of proposed.
Right.
And there's nothing wrong with either of those choices. It's what are you focusing on, right? And bards are hard because bards have a lot of ways they can go.
Yeah, frankly, another thing you could do is if you're not trying to piss off Samus Garobo, I probably could have gone human instead of drow, and that would have given me at least one extra feat where I could have probably slotted in something like quicken.
I mean, you lose a little bit of constant charisma, but you start wincing. It's choices, right? This is a tough. You have to decide: are you going to be more spellcasting or more swashbuckling? Where's your balance going to be with those two things?
See, I want it all. But that was my goal: is to see could I do it all? Maybe this. I'm sure there are build experts out there who are just like you're never running Epic Elite, are you? But no, predominantly. Well, I don't know. I am with the group, but what I found in practical terms though is I'm dishing out a lot of damage. I'm critically hitting a lot. I'm able to manage crowd control and aggro quite well while dishing out a lot of damage and still being able to have fairly high crowd control abilities there too. So it works out well for me. I do have just again I'm only level 23, so this is working my way up. I'm currently in the Divine Crusader life, predominantly again to give myself a nice big boost to charisma and a few other things as well. I've got the Aura of Purification, which is kind of nice. It gives me a little bit more hit points and does lower the attack damage while enemies are wailing on me if they get through. So that's predominantly what that's about.
Some stuff to point out here too. If you want to be less about crowd control and you don't really care about that, and you just want to be more swashbucklery, a feat you can consider taking is Force of Personality. It gives you charisma bonus to will saves. Now, if you're gonna at all kind of focus on spellcasting, you're probably not gonna have room for that feat.
Yeah.
So, and keep in mind you have epic feats too that you can kind of backfill some of this stuff in with as well.
Right. For my epic feat at 26, I probably will take Quicken.
Yeah.
Probably, just because I need it. Ideally, if I could find a way to fit it in, I would use that for perfect single weapon fighting. But really, perfect single weapon fighting predominantly just gives you a Vorpal effect. So,
perfect single weapon fighting and Quicken do not share the feat slots, because the perfect single weapon fighting is a Destiny feat.
Oh, right.
Not a normal feat. So you can actually get both.
You need a Destiny in the Martial Sphere, which I happen to actually have in this character, but still, really the only thing with perfect single weapon fighting is your Vorpal threat range is increased by 1, so that's kind of nice, but I'm not sure, given the overall needs of this build, if that's something to take. I did take already. I did get again because again I was doing DC stuff. I did take Epic Spell Focus Enchantment as well, so I probably should not have done that. But again, it never hurts. So
there is also Inspire Excellence, which is an epic bard song, which you can take, which gives +2 to all your stats, which is +1 DC, right? Because it's also there as well. I would say if you do find yourself taking a lot of spell singer action or enhancements, you'll probably like the Draconic line as well for Destinies. I know I had a lot of fun with my Bard when he was in Draconic. The Energy Burst plays very well with a Bard because they do get some decent spell power, particularly through the spell singer tree, which is universal spell power. So it actually works surprisingly well. I was very pleased with that.
I'll look into that. I haven't really settled. I'm only level 23 here, so I'm mostly just trying to get XP in all of my epic destinies. So that's really why I'm Divine Crusader as much as anything.
And
but it doesn't hurt. So.
Swashbuckler's kind of weird. Like if you don't have, I kind of felt like if you don't have Cleave, there's not really a clear-cut martial destiny that really works well. I think you can get a lot of mileage out of the Sentinel tree because you can get some healing stuff out of it as well, which works well with Bards.
I was before I switched to Divine Crusader. When I first started, I was in my legendary Dreadnought. That's nice because you can have a devastating critical, which does a +1 critical damage multiplier on rolls of 19 or 20. That works well because I am, again, critically hitting a lot. And of course, Master's Blitz being what it is always a good thing as well. But so I would probably recommend. Well.
Yeah, but how are you going to charge Master
I might
Blitz,
recommend
That's the problem.
Yeah, right. Exactly right.
Kind of running out of things, but there's a lot of ways you can go, and there's a lot of potential to go with these builds. So
I do work at Turbine, so I was aware of this Master's Blitz change coming. So
Yeah, that's true. But anyways, so there's a lot of things we're talking about Swashbucklers. I think we did a pretty good job of covering a lot of different options you can go in this. To kind of close out this discussion, I'm going to skip ahead to the lightning post.
Actually, I do just have one more quick thing maybe I could add, huh? And that is the single weapon fighter line of feats is available as a fighter bonus feat. So, although I have not entirely mapped out how it would be done, I suspect that you could very well be a very effective fighter with a single weapon fighting line as well. Perhaps Splash Bard to get Swashbuckler there as well. So that might be a consideration as well.
Yeah, if you took even just 2 levels of fighter, you'd lose the evasion from the capstone.
Right.
Or you could do something like, this was a while back, but I had a friend in game who had a 16 Bard, 2 Rogue, 2 Fighter. It was more of a melee focus, and that would actually work really well. You wouldn't really lose too much in terms of songs and spells. You'd be a little less effective with spell casting, but not that much.
With the armor-up changes going in Update 23, that may well become a fairly viable option because you wouldn't have evasion, but you would have essentially the equivalent of a melee version of evasion. Be able to take your single weapon fighting and Swashbuckler stuff fairly easily and get a nice benefit there.
There's options there. The post question this week, which will kind of tie into this discussion, comes from Hiola Hawk. They ask, is it best to keep a character pure or multi-class? I chose this question because our builds are kind of on opposite side of the spectrum here. Mine's very much a multi-class build, and yours is very much a pure
build. One's good, and one's bad. No, I'm kidding. No, yours is the good one. No, actually, you know what, though? At its core, and I know that, whenever you talk about your build, you open yourself up for a lot of criticism. But in terms of actually playing my character, he is extremely fun to play, and he's just dishing out the damage and doing a lot of Bard stuff. Because I really, part of my philosophy is that there was a lot of people who felt Bards were just not necessarily that effective prior to Swashbuckler and all that sort of thing. So I really wanted to find a way to be as Bardy as I could and still get all the benefits of this stuff. So to answer his question, I think in general, provided you know your stuff, you're probably better off multi-classing in this game. But
I think it depends on what you
exceptions.
Want. Yeah. I think it really does depend on which one. Now, I would say that I would still kind of, for the purpose of this discussion, I would say something like an 18-2 split is still basically a pure class. You're not really getting much flavor out of that other class. I know it's technically multi-classing, but like an 18 Barbarian 2 Fighter is, in my mind, really a pure Barbarian. He just took a couple levels of Fighter to augment the Barbarian, right? It's not a fighter. When you're talking about like the build I did today with 13 rogue, 5 bard, 2 fighter. It's not really a fighter, but it's definitely multi-classing in bard and rogue, right?
Yep.
I think it depends on what you want. A class like bard, if you really want to get the flavor of being a bard, you're probably going to want to be more pure than not. I think that I'm going to kind of mince hairs. This question is kind of, for me, it's not just like one or the other. There's a little bit of more of a sliding scale, right? Like I just talked about a 16 bard, 2 rogue, 2 fighter. It's still effectively a bard. It's just kind of using those other classes to really augment the bardiness and what the bard's doing. In this case, swashbuckling.
Right.
So there's a lot of kind of things going on. Really, when it comes down to multi-classing versus pure, is what do you want your character to do and how do you want it to play? You wanted to play a bard, right? You wanted to have something that was very bard. So you went pure bard because you really wanted to get a good feel of the bard. Mine was kind of more on a power gaming style of play of I want to do a lot of DPS in swashbuckling. Like that, I'm going to do single weapon fighting and I want to do as much DPS as possible. So I took bard to get the single weapon fighting and swashbuckling stuff, and I went rogue because you get a lot of DPS out of your sneak attacks and stuff like that. So those are things to consider, right? I don't think the answer to the question really is it best to keep a character pure in multi-class is going to always come down to the specific build that you're looking for, your specific goals, and your playstyle, right? It's not just a blanket answer yes or no. So is it best to keep a character pure multi-class? Yes. What do you want out of the character? That's really what it comes down to. And what are you giving up by taking those levels, and what do you gain in return?
I'm going to say, though, in general, in DDO, you do tend to see more multi-classing for a reason, because a couple levels split, particularly Rogue and Monk, are really some of the most powerful things you could do to improve your character in this game. And I think there's a wide recognition of that. Sometimes you might want to splash a fighter or perhaps paladin as well for the saving throws fighter for maybe martial feats and minor base attack bonus or whatever. But in general, the big two are rogue and monk, and their power level, on the rogue side it's skill points, sneak attack, and perhaps traps, and on the monk side it's really just earth stance and a couple other things.
I mean, let's look at those real quick. 2 levels of rogue gives you evasion and some skill points. So 2 levels of rogue you can certainly get enough in open lock. You might not be able to get enough skill points depending on what your other classes are to be a trapper, but you can certainly do open locks. Whereas you're looking at you also get a d6 of sneak attack damage. Monks for 2 levels you get 2 feats and evasion. That's pretty strong. And I think when we're talking about multi-class, the new enhancement system, the devs did a really good job of making it very supportive multi-class, even more so than what we had before. And you can see some of the crazy splits that we've gotten recently. Like, when the enhancements first dropped, it was 2 monk, 4 favored soul, and 14 wizards. I saw a bunch of those running around, basically using Shirati casting, and there is fire spell power in monk.
Yeah.
It's kind of different, right? But it really opens up those multi-classing doors. So there's a lot of things that you can do in the game, and that's great. And this is what DDO Dungeons & Dragons is all about, right? Is character customization and multi-classing and doing these interesting combinations. That's really what the core of the game is all about.
Yeah.
So there we go. That's a long-winded answer to that question. Really quick, because I kind of forgot to do this. I am going to... So this is just kind of, again, this is the character that I ran with on Party Crashers a few weeks back. So if you want to kind of see the character in action, you can kind of look at that, and that's the swashbuckling build that I did on Lemania with Jerry here. This is just kind of showing some of the basic stats. You can see where the stats line up, the attribute stats line up. Had some decent amount of hit points and spell points going on. And you can see this one here shows the armor class. Keep in mind the build that I just did today will have less dodge because this build has mobility and spring attack going for it as well. And then if I can let's see. And then this kind of just shows the attack speed that I got out of this character. So I have a 45% speed bonus to attack, melee attack speed, which is pretty insane. And 19% double strike, which is pretty darn good as well. So you can get some pretty high numbers in terms of that.
Wow, 45% melee attack speed bonus. That's really surprisingly good. How are you doing that?
There may have been... One of the nice things about taking 2 levels of fighter is you can take the attack speed boost. And I may have activated that when I took this picture. I don't remember. This was a couple weeks ago. But, 30% of that... Something like 30% of that is coming from just a single weapon fighting feats.
Okay.
And then there might be a few other things here and there adding to that as well. Okay. But that's pretty... So there's probably I'm pretty sure I have blinding speed here as well.
Okay.
So that might be where some of I think that might be the other 15% actually. But
okay, yeah, because I just quick cast haste myself, and now I'm up to 35%. Melee attack speed. But even so, you're still higher than me. And is that buffed or is that unbuffed?
I think that is. I think that's just greater single weapon fighting and blinding speed, which would be 30 and 15, I think, if my numbers are correct. So that would mean that, and I still have at this character's disposal that attack boost from 2 levels of fighter in the Kensai tree. So, which I didn't really mention when I was talking about my enhancements, because I kind of spaced when I was running it. But that's another thing you can pull out of that. So, multiclassing is a lot of fun. You get a lot of great options there. Anything else you want to add before we close this sucker out?
No, just get ready for update 23 on Lamania here within a few weeks. Hopefully we'll be able to tell you a whole lot more. One of our big goals is to write all the release notes for it. So it's going to be a very big patch, I can tell you that, between the Orchard of the Macabre stuff and Armor Up stuff and just a whole bunch of bug fixes and stuff. We have got a lot that we're cramming, frankly, into update 23 here. And even some stuff that you don't know about yet, which hopefully you will find out about very soon. I suppose I could quick check the dev tracker here just to make sure someone didn't announce.
While you're doing that, I'll just say thanks to Dre for joining me on the show today. And thanks for everyone else who helps participate and makes the show possible. Thanks for listening, and thanks to Turbine and Wizards for making some great games. Especially looking forward to Update 23. It should be a good one. And thanks to Cyberbears for hosting the podcast. You can hit us up at DDOCast.com for show notes, calendar, previous shows, swag, and other fun stuff. If you want to be part of the show or just say hi, you can email us at DDOcast@gmail.com. You can also find us on social media and follow us for the latest cast updates. Don't forget, I'll be on different servers asking questions, and you can also link to the show notes where you can participate in that even if you can't find me in-game. You can always just send an email at ddocast@gmail.com and say, hey, ask me your questions and give me prizes, and we can do that. Closing tip for the week comes from Daryl. He says, plan your character carefully when creating a new character.
Or you could just sort of wing it on the fly and respec.
That is always an option, although that is not necessarily going to be the most successful version. However, whenever
this has been a very informative episode for me. I'd like to say, when you really get a chance to look at your build like this, I can already see a few things I will probably be tweaking here not long after we get off the air. Probably do a quick LR or something like that, and certainly shore up some of my skills, but also see if I can work out a way to get Quicken at the very least. So.
Yeah, and it's always helpful for even, hey, I learned something today too. I forgot that bards had mind fog as a spell, so I may be adding.
Yeah, that's one I really didn't, because I had never really, played it that much, bard that much before. When I saw that, I was like, is this going to work as great as I think it's going to work? And it definitely does. So it's very nice.
So. Yes, indeed.
All right, that's all the information I got for you. Stay tuned, though. I think we got some exciting news that you'll probably be reading about next week. So.
Yeah, thanks everyone for listening. Have fun. Don't forget to gather for buffs and try out the Swashbuckler. Have some fun. Stab some things in the back.